My partner saw it first. That's the part one keep coming back to. Not the plates. Not the photographs. Not what happened to the driver in lane 4. Dana saw it before I did. And she told me. And I didn't listen. I should go back to the beginning. I started working the overnight booth at the Hargrove Toll Plaza in October of 2019. 6 lanes, 3 staffed, 3 automated. The plaza sits on a long, straight stretch of I-55 about 40 miles south of the Missouri state line, flat land, no lights, soybean fields on either side that go dark as ink after sundown. During the day the traffic is steady. Semis, commuters, families heading south toward Memphis. After midnight it thins to almost nothing. You'll get a truck every 15, 20 minutes. The occasional sedan. Long silences between. There were 2 of us on every overnight shift. One in the booth, one in the operations room behind the plaza, a small cinderblock building with monitors for the lane cameras, a desk, a space heater, and a landline phone connected to the Missouri DOT dispatch. You rotated positions every 4 hours. Booth to ops, ops to booth. That was the whole job. Dana Reeves had been there 2 years before me. She trained me. She was calm, methodical, somewhere in her late 40s with reading glasses she kept on a chain around her neck and a way of explaining things that made the job feel serious. Not important, exactly. Serious. She believed in doing it correctly. The first 3 weeks were uneventful. You scan the transponders, you take cash from the ones who don't have them, you make change, you press the button to lift the gate. The overnight hours are long but not difficult. The hardest part is the sameness. You start to notice it in yourself, the way your eyes glaze, the way you stop really seeing the drivers. They become shapes. Hands extending money. Windshields reflecting your booth light back at you. Dana told me that was dangerous. You need to look at them, she said. This was during my second week, around 1 a.m., while we were switching positions. She was heading to the booth and I was walking back to the ops room. I know it gets repetitive. But you need to actually look at each face. I asked why. She adjusted her glasses and said, because sometimes they come through more than once. I didn't understand what she meant. I figured she was talking about confused drivers or toll runners who loop back. It happens. Someone misses an exit, U-turns at the next interchange, comes through the plaza again heading the opposite direction. Routine. She didn't clarify. She just said, if you see the same face twice in one shift, write down the plate number and the time. Both times. Keep the note. Give it to me. It sounded like a training quirk. Every job has them, the veteran who's been there too long, who's developed a private mythology about the work. I nodded and didn't think about it again. November 8, 2019. 2:47 a.m. I was in the booth. A sedan came through lane 2, my lane. Dark blue or black, hard to tell under the sodium lights. The driver was a woman, maybe mid-30s, brown hair pulled back. She paid with a 5 and waited for change with her window all the way down despite the cold. I handed her the coins and she pulled forward. Nothing unusual. I didn't think about her. At 3:12 a.m., another sedan. Same color. Same lane. The driver was a woman with brown hair pulled back. She paid with a 5 and waited for change with her window all the way down. I felt a flicker of something, not fear, just that faint cognitive friction when your brain notices a pattern before you consciously do. I handed her the change. She pulled forward. I sat there for a moment. Then I picked up the booth phone and called the ops room. Dana. Yeah. I think someone just came through twice. Silence. Then, plate number. I didn't have it. I hadn't written it down. I told her that. More silence. Then she said, check the camera feed when you come back here. Lane 2, timestamp 2:47 and 3:12. Write down both plates. At 4 a.m. we switched. I went to the ops room, sat at the desk, and pulled up the lane 2 feed. I scrubbed back to 2:47. The dark sedan. The woman. I paused the frame and zoomed in on the plate. Missouri. 4GH, T71. I scrubbed forward to 3:12. Dark sedan. Same angle, same approach speed. I zoomed in on the plate. Missouri. 4GH, T71. Same plate. I wrote it down. I noted both timestamps. Then I did something Dana hadn't asked me to do. I zoomed in on the driver's face at both timestamps. At 2:47, the woman was looking at me. Normal. Eyes forward, slightly tired expression, the way anyone looks at a toll booth attendant at 3 in the morning. At 3:12, she was looking at me again. Same expression. Same angle of her head. Same part in her hair. Exactly the same. Not similar. Not basically the same. I toggled between the two frames for almost a minute. The position of her hands on the wheel. The crease of her jacket collar. The precise degree to which her window was down. Identical. As if the same 20 seconds of footage had been copied and pasted into a different time slot. But the timestamps were 25 minutes apart. And I had been in the booth for both. I remembered both interactions. I remembered handing her change twice. The coins had come from different spots in my register tray, the first time from the left quarter stack, the second from a loose pile of dimes and nickels on the right. Those were different. I was different in each encounter. She wasn't. I gave Dana the note when she came back at the end of the shift. She read it, folded it, and put it in a small brown envelope she kept in her jacket pocket. I could see there were other notes already inside. How many times has this happened? I asked. To you. Once. To you. She put the envelope away. Get some sleep. I'll see you tonight. I want to be clear about something. Dana was not evasive because she was crazy or paranoid. She was evasive because she was being careful. I understand that now. She was deciding how much to tell me based on how much I'd seen for myself. She didn't want to put ideas in my head that would contaminate my observations. She wanted clean data. That's what the notes were. Data. November 14th, 1:33 a.m. I was in the booth again. A pickup truck came through. White, older model, mud on the wheel wells. The driver was a man in his 60s with a mesh cap and a denim jacket. He paid with exact change, $3 in ones, crumpled, handed to me in a loose stack. He didn't speak. His face was expressionless. Not hostile, not tired. Just absent. Like a mannequin someone had dressed in work clothes and placed behind a steering wheel. I looked at him carefully. I looked at his eyes. They didn't move. Not at all. Not the micro-movements you normally see, the little saccades, the drift of focus from my hand to my face to the road ahead. His eyes were fixed on a point somewhere behind my left shoulder. Fixed perfectly. As if they'd been painted on. He took his change. The window went up. He pulled forward. I wrote down the time. I wrote down what I could remember of the plate. I wrote, eyes did not move. Expression fixed. Felt wrong. At 2:01 a.m., the same truck came through. Same man. Same cap. Same jacket. Same crumpled ones. Same fixed, painted stare at the point behind my left shoulder. I did something I hadn't planned to do. As I handed back his change, I held onto the coins for an extra second, forcing his hand to stay extended. I wanted to see if he'd react. If he'd look at me. If anything in his expression would shift. His hand stayed open. His arm stayed extended at the exact same angle. His eyes didn't move. I let go of the coins. They fell into his palm. His hand retracted. The window went up with the same mechanical smoothness. He pulled forward at the same speed. 3:47 a.m. Same truck. Third pass. This time I didn't take his money. I leaned forward in the booth and said, loudly and clearly, "Sir, you've come through here 3 times tonight. Is everything okay? Are you lost?" He extended the crumpled ones. Same hand. Same angle. His mouth moved. That was new. That was different from the first 2 times. His mouth opened slightly and his lips shifted, but the movement didn't match any word I could identify. It was like watching someone mimic speech from a language they didn't understand. The shapes were close to human articulation, but the timing was wrong, the sequence was off. His jaw moved a half-second after his lips. His tongue was visible briefly and it was dry. Completely dry, the way skin looks when there's been no moisture on it for a long time. I took the money. I pressed the gate. He pulled forward. I called the ops room immediately. Dana. Lane 2. White pickup. He's been through 3 times. I know, she said. I've been watching on the monitor. His mouth moved this time. It didn't before. A long pause. Did he look at you? No. His eyes didn't move at all. Okay. Another pause. When you come back here, I need to show you something. At 4 a.m. I walked into the ops room and Dana was sitting at the desk with the brown envelope open. Inside were dozens of notes, some in her handwriting, some in other hands I didn't recognize. Former employees, I assumed. She'd spread 6 of them out on the desk in a row. Each note described the same basic event. A vehicle coming through the plaza multiple times in a single shift. Always overnight. Always the same lane. The driver always identical across passes, same posture, same expression, same payment method, same amount of cash in the same denomination. And in every note, the same detail appeared, the driver's eyes didn't move. This goes back to 2014, Dana said. That's when the first note was written. Harold Keene, he worked here before me. He noticed it and started keeping records. When he left, he gave the envelope to the next person. That person gave it to me. How often does it happen? Every few weeks. Sometimes more. It's been increasing since last spring. She pulled up something on the desk computer, a spreadsheet she'd been maintaining. Dates, times, lane numbers, vehicle descriptions, plate numbers. She'd logged over 40 incidents across 5 years. I scrolled through the entries. Something jumped out at me almost immediately. The plate numbers repeated, but not in the way I expected. A given plate would appear in a cluster, 3, 4, 5 times across a few weeks, and then never again. But here was the part that made my stomach tighten. Dana had cross-referenced several of the plates using a public DMV lookup tool. Every single plate she'd been able to trace was registered to a real person. And in 6 of those cases, she'd found something else. She turned the monitor toward me. 6 obituaries. Printed from local newspaper websites. 6 people, all from within a 200-mile radius of the plaza, all dead before their vehicles began appearing at the toll booth. The man in the white pickup. The one I'd seen 3 times that night. His name was Gerald Harkin. He was 67. He died of a stroke in his home in Caruthersville, Missouri, on September 2, 2019. 10 weeks before I watched him hand me crumpled dollar bills with eyes that didn't move. I need you to understand what this felt like. Not the horror movie version. The real version. It felt administrative. It felt like finding an error in a spreadsheet that shouldn't be possible, a formula that references a deleted cell but still returns a value. The data was there. The events were documented. The timestamps were real. The camera footage was real. But the conclusion was not something I could file anywhere in my understanding of how the world works. Dead people were driving through our toll plaza. Not ghosts. Not translucent figures floating through the lanes. Solid, physical vehicles with functioning headlights and valid plates and drivers who paid the correct toll amount in cash. Everything about them was real except that they couldn't be. What are they? I asked. I don't know, Dana said. But I know what they're doing. She showed me a map she'd drawn on a piece of graph paper. The toll plaza at the center. Lines radiating outward to the home addresses of the 6 confirmed deceased drivers. Each line had a number next to it, the number of times that driver had appeared at the plaza. The numbers increased as the addresses got closer to the toll booth. Gerald Harkin, the closest, 60 miles away, had been seen 11 times before that night. A woman from Carbondale, Illinois, nearly 200 miles, had been seen only twice. They're narrowing in, Dana said. I think the plaza is a waypoint. I think they pass through here on their way somewhere, and each time they come through, they get a little more. She paused, looking for the word. Detailed. What do you mean? The first time they come through, they're almost perfect copies. Everything identical, every pass. Like a recording on a loop. But the more times they come through, small things change. The mouth moves. The head turns a few degrees. Last March, there was a woman in a red Civic who'd been through 9 times, and on the 9th pass, Dana stopped. She took her glasses off and rubbed her eyes. On the 9th pass, she looked directly at me. Not at the space behind me. At me. And she smiled. She put her glasses back on. That was the last time she came through. What happened after that? I don't know. She never came back. None of them come back after they finish. After whatever process this is completes. Finish and go where? Dana didn't answer. I kept working. I want to say it was because I needed the money, and I did, but that's not the whole reason. The whole reason was Dana. She was tracking this. She was building a record. She wasn't panicking and she wasn't pretending it wasn't happening. She was treating it like a problem that could be understood if she gathered enough information, and I found that steadying. I didn't want to leave her alone with it. Over the next 3 weeks, I saw 4 more repeaters. That's what we started calling them. I logged every detail. Dana added them to the spreadsheet. We developed a shorthand, pass 1, pass 2, pass 3, and a notation system for the changes we observed between passes. The changes were always physical. Always in the driver. And always progressed in the same direction, toward life. Pass 1 through 3, perfectly static. Eyes fixed. Expression frozen. Movements robotic and identical each time. Pass 4 through 6, micro-movements begin. A finger twitches on the steering wheel. The jaw shifts slightly. The chest rises and falls, but at the wrong speed, too slow, or too fast, like someone estimating what breathing looks like rather than actually doing it. Pass 7 through 9, the eyes begin to track. Not well. They drift in the wrong direction, they lag behind the head's movement, they fix on things that aren't there. But they move. The face starts to develop micro-expressions, not emotions, exactly, but the muscle movements that precede emotions. The eyebrows contract a quarter of a second before what might become a frown. Past 10 and beyond, we only had a few data points here. Dana's red Civic woman. One other, a man in a gray SUV that Harold Keene had tracked before Dana took over. In both cases, the final pass involved the driver making direct, sustained eye contact with the booth attendant and producing a facial expression, the smile Dana described, or in Keene's account, something he described as recognition. And then they stopped coming. Dana believed the toll booth was part of a process. She thought these people, these things that looked like people, were practicing. Iterating. Refining a performance of being alive. Each pass through the booth was a rehearsal of a simple human interaction: approach, stop, pay, receive change, leave, and each repetition got closer to convincing. But convincing for what? I asked. That's what I can't figure out, she said. They're perfecting an imitation. But I don't know where they're going to perform it. December 3, 2019. The night everything changed. I was in the ops room. Dana was in the booth. It was just past 2 a.m. and traffic had been dead for over an hour. I was watching the lane monitors without much focus, the way you watch television you're not interested in. The lanes were empty. The sodium lights cast their flat orange circles on the asphalt. Nothing moved. Then a car appeared in lane 2. I didn't see it approach. That's important. The camera covers 300 yards of approach road. I should have watched it grow from a pair of headlights in the distance to a full vehicle pulling into the lane. Instead it was simply there, sitting at the booth window as if it had materialized in place. A green sedan, older model. The driver was already extending a hand with cash. Dana took the money. She made change. The car pulled forward. I rewound the feed. I watched the approach road at 4x speed for the 5 minutes before the car appeared. Empty. 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 Then, in a single frame, the car was at the window. No approach. No headlights growing on the road. One frame, empty lane. Next frame, car. The phone on the desk rang. "Dana. Did you see that?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it I hadn't heard before. "I saw it. There's no approach footage. It just appeared." "That's not what I mean." A pause. I recognized her. "It's a repeater." "No. I recognized her because I know her." "Knew her." Another pause, longer this time. "That was my sister." Dana's sister, Michelle, had died in a car accident on I-55, the same highway, in March of 2014. The same year the notes began. I went out to the booth. Dana was still sitting in the chair, but she'd swiveled it away from the window and was facing the back wall. Her hands were in her lap, perfectly still. When I stepped inside, she didn't turn around. "Dana." "Her window was down," Dana said. "It's 31 degrees outside and her window was all the way down." Michelle always drove with her windows up. Even in summer. She hated the wind messing up her hair. "It's not her." "I know it's not her." She turned around. Her face was dry. Her expression was focused, almost clinical. "That's what frightens me. Because it's learning to be her. And it's using me to check its work." I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. Every repeater we've tracked, they come through the staffed lanes. Never the automated ones. Why? The automated lanes are open. There's no reason to wait for a person. Unless the person is the point. Unless being seen is part of the process. She stood up. They're not just rehearsing a human interaction. They're rehearsing being a specific human, and they need someone who knew that human to validate the performance. That's why Michelle is here. Because I'm here. A chill crawled across the back of my neck that had nothing to do with the December air. "The red Civic woman," Dana continued. I looked her up after she stopped coming. Carol Denning. Died in 2018. Lived in Sikeston. Her daughter worked at this plaza for 6 months in 2019, the same 6 months Carol's vehicle was appearing. The daughter was the audience. The daughter was the test. When whatever was copying Carol got good enough to make her own daughter look at her and see her mother, really see her, the process was complete. The daughter quit a week later. I assumed she'd just found a different job. I thought about Gerald Harkin's eyes. Painted on. Fixed on a point behind my shoulder. I thought about what Dana said, that they were iterating, getting closer to life. Getting closer to being recognized. Getting close to being able to walk back into the lives of the people who mourned them. At 2:48 a.m., the green sedan came through lane 2 again. Past 2. I was in the ops room, watching the monitor. Again, no approach footage. One frame empty, next frame present. The driver extended cash. Dana took it. Made change. The car left. I zoomed in on the driver's face. Mid-40s. Blonde hair. A resemblance to Dana around the jaw and forehead that I could see even through the camera's grainy resolution. The expression was flat. The eyes were fixed. Past 2, still in the static phase. But I noticed something else. The driver's left hand was resting on the top of the steering wheel. On the wrist, a watch. I zoomed in as far as the camera allowed. The image was blurry, but I could make out a silver band with a round face. Dana was wearing the same watch. I'd seen it 100 times. She'd told me once that it had been her sister's, that she'd worn it every day since Michelle's funeral. The thing in the car was wearing Michelle's watch. The real Michelle's watch. The one that was currently on Dana's wrist in the toll booth. It was copying everything. Not from memory. From now. The green sedan came through 4 more times that night. Past 3:14 a.m. Eyes still fixed. But the breathing had started, the too slow rise and fall of the chest that we'd documented in other repeaters. Ahead of schedule. The iterations were accelerating. Past 3:31 a.m. The head turned 2 degrees toward Dana as she handed back the change. The fingers on the steering wheel shifted. The lips parted slightly. Past 3:52 a.m. The eyes moved. They tracked Dana's hand from the cash register to the window. They were slow, imprecise, drifting slightly to the right of where they should have been focused. But they moved. Past 4:07 a.m. I was supposed to have relieved Dana at 4 o'clock. She waved me off through the booth window when I came outside. She wanted to stay. She wanted to see it through. The green sedan pulled up. The window was down. The driver extended cash. And this time, the driver's mouth moved. Not the random, disjointed mimicry I'd seen with Gerald Harkin. This was a word. A single syllable. I couldn't hear it from the ops room. But I saw Dana's hand freeze halfway to the money. She stood perfectly still for 3 seconds. Then she took the cash, made change, pressed the gate. The car pulled forward. I called the booth phone. She picked up on the 4th ring. What did she say? Dana's voice was barely above a whisper. She said my name. I told her we had to stop. Not just stop for the night, stop working there. Leave. Both of us. Whatever this process was, Dana was now its target audience. Every pass through the booth was calibrating the imitation closer to something Dana would accept, would recognize, would believe was her dead sister. And I didn't know what would happen when the performance became perfect, but every instinct I had said we did not want to find out. Dana didn't argue. That scared me more than anything else that night. Dana always argued. She was methodical, stubborn, committed to documentation. The fact that she agreed immediately told me she'd already reached the same conclusion and had been waiting for me to catch up. But she said something else first. We need to take the records. All of them. The spreadsheet, the notes, the footage backups. If we leave and no one knows what's happening here, the next person who works the overnight shift becomes the next audience. It'll find whoever they've lost and start the process over. She was right. We couldn't just disappear. Someone had to inherit the knowledge, the way Harold Keene had passed it to the next person, and that person had passed it to Dana. That's not enough, I said. Passing notes in an envelope, that's just observation. It's been 5 years of observation and no one's done anything to stop it. What do you suggest? I'd been thinking about it since the 3rd pass. Since I watched the camera footage and saw the sedan appear from nothing. These things came through the staffed lanes because they needed a human witness. A specific human witness who could validate their imitation. Without that witness, the process stalled. We shut down the staffed lanes overnight, I said. All of them. Automate the whole plaza after midnight. Remove the audience. We can't authorize that. No. but someone at DOT can. If we give them the footage. Dana looked at me for a long time. I could see her calculating, not whether I was right, but whether it would work. Whether a bureaucracy would watch footage of a car materializing in a toll lane and do anything other than flag it as a camera glitch. The footage of the car appearing won't be enough, she said. They'll say it's a hardware malfunction. We need something they can't dismiss. She was right again. So we did something that, looking back, was either the bravest or the most reckless thing I've ever been part of. December 4th. The next night. We changed the plan. Dana took the booth at midnight as usual. I was in the ops room. But this time I wasn't just watching the monitors. I had the desk phone off the hook, connected to the DOT emergency line. I'd told the dispatcher I was documenting a safety concern at the plaza and needed to keep the line open. She was annoyed, but she stayed on. At 1:22 a.m., the green sedan appeared in lane 2. No approach. One frame empty, next frame present. Past 7. The driver's eyes tracked Dana smoothly this time. The breathing was natural, even, calm, the rhythm of a person at rest. The facial muscles were active. There was expression now. Something around the eyes that looked like warmth. Dana didn't take the cash. Instead, she leaned forward and spoke directly to the driver. I couldn't hear what she said from the ops room, but I could see her mouth moving on the monitor. She spoke for about 15 seconds. The driver, the thing wearing her sister's face, listened. Its expression shifted. The warmth in its eyes deepened. The corners of its mouth pulled upward. It was smiling at Dana the way someone smiles at a person they love. Dana reached over and pressed the emergency stop on her booth console. The lane 2 gate locked down. The yellow caution lights began flashing across the plaza. The sedan didn't move. The driver continued to smile at Dana. I spoke into the phone. I need you to pull up the remote feed for Hargrove Plaza, lane 2. Right now. Tell me what you see. I heard typing. A pause. I see a vehicle stopped at the booth. Look at the approach footage. Scrub back 60 seconds. More typing. A longer pause. There's no approach. The vehicle it's just there. That's got to be a camera error. It's not. Keep watching. On my monitor, the sedan was still stopped at the booth. The driver was still smiling. But something was changing. The smile was widening. Slowly. Incrementally. Pulling further than a human mouth should pull. The warmth in the eyes was curdling into something else, something fixed and rigid, a performance of warmth that had overshot its target and was now entering a territory that made my hands shake. It knew. It knew we weren't playing along. It knew the test had been interrupted. And whatever constraint had been governing its behavior, the slow, careful escalation from static to alive, the incremental crawl toward authenticity, that constraint was gone. The head turned. Not toward Dana. Toward the camera. Toward me. The face on the monitor looked directly into the lens, and the smile was too wide and the eyes were too bright, and the thing wearing Michelle's body understood that it had been observed by someone who was not its intended audience, and for one terrible moment I felt a jolt of something that I can only describe as being noticed by something that does not experience attention the way we do. Dana hit the booth's external alarm. The sound blasted across the empty plaza. The sedan's engine revved. I heard it through the phone line, through the monitor speakers, a raw mechanical scream, and the car shot forward through the locked gate, snapping the barrier arm like a toothpick. It fishtailed on the far side of the plaza, recovered, and accelerated south on I-55 until its taillights vanished. On the phone, the dispatcher was saying something. I wasn't listening. Dana came out of the booth and walked toward the ops room. She was holding the broken gate arm in one hand. Her face was white but her jaw was set and her eyes were clear. She said it back to me, Dana told me at the door. Said what back? When I leaned forward, I said the last thing I ever said to Michelle. Before the accident. Something only she and I would know. Dana set the gate arm down on the desk. And the thing in the car said it back to me. Word for word. In Michelle's voice. She sat down. But the cadence was wrong. Michelle would have laughed when she said it. She always laughed. This thing said it like it was reading from a transcript. The DOT dispatcher filed a report. The broken gate arm was physical evidence. The camera footage, including the single-frame appearance, was pulled and archived by state technicians 2 days later. I don't know what they made of it. I don't know what language they used to describe a car that appears from nowhere, driven by a woman who died 5 years ago. What I know is this: 3 weeks later, the Hargrove Plaza overnight lanes were converted to full automation. No more staffed booths between midnight and 6 a.m. The official reason was a pilot program for cost reduction. Maybe that's even true. Maybe the footage had nothing to do with it. I'll never know. Dana and I both transferred. She went to a plaza near St. Louis. I went to a desk job at the regional DOT office, processing toll revenue reports. She gave me the envelope before we parted. I keep it in a locked drawer at home. The green sedan has not been seen at Hargrove Plaza since the lanes were automated. Neither has any other repeater. Dana checks the automated logs monthly through a contact who still works there. No anomalous repeat plates. No vehicles appearing without approach footage. Whatever was using the plaza seems to need a human being in the booth, a living person to witness, to recognize, to validate. We took that away. But here's the thing I haven't been able to stop thinking about. The thing that keeps me sitting at my desk at 2 a.m., scrolling through the spreadsheet Dana built, looking at the column she labeled, Final Pass, Status. Out of the 43 repeaters Dana logged over 5 years, 31 completed the process. They reached the final pass. They made eye contact. They smiled or spoke or produced an expression that their audience recognized as human, as real, as the person they had lost. And then they stopped coming through the toll booth. 31 imitations that became good enough. 31 rehearsals that ended. 31 things that looked like dead people, perfected their performance, and then drove south on I-55 toward wherever they were going. I keep looking at the home addresses of the people who were being copied. The dead. The originals. And then I look at the addresses of the people those dead had left behind, the co-workers who manned the booths, the ones who served as the audience, the ones who unknowingly helped calibrate the imitation by being present and reactive and human. 14 of those co-workers still live within 100 miles of the families of the dead. I made calls. Careful ones. Casual. Hey, how's it going? Do you remember working at Hargrove? That kind of thing. 3 of them told me the same thing. They'd seen someone recently. At a grocery store, at a gas station, on the street outside their house. Someone who looked like a person they used to know. Someone who'd died. And the person had smiled at them. And the smile was perfect. Not too wide. Not too stiff. Not uncanny in any way. Perfect. Which means I was wrong about one thing. The toll booth wasn't where the performance was meant to happen. It was where they practiced.